order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Carolina, we shall ask for roll call, please.
Councilmember Gullikson?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Correll?
Yes.
Mayor Walters?
Yes. Greetings, everyone. We shall start our meeting tonight with Mayor Waller's quote for the day. This quote I selected comes from a Mr. William Sayan. He's an American novelist and playwright. I guess received a Pulitzer Prize in 1943 for the human comedy. Good people are good because they've come to wisdom through failure. Okay, we'll move on to, think about that one for a little bit. Approval of tonight's agenda. I guess I would like to ask the council to add item F under petitions, requests, and communications. We have an announcement for the 3 finalists for the city manager vacancy. And are there any other additions or corrections from members of the council? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I will so move approval of the agenda as listed with that addition.
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we do have a public hearing tonight, and I just want to clarify, this, of course, is the second reading. So I will open the public hearing, and then that will be the public's opportunity to speak to it. We also have 3 first readings, as you'll see under petitions, requests, and communications. And those are, of course, first readings, so then there will be no opportunity to speak to those, but you will have at a later date in February, okay? Just so everybody understands that. And then just a reminder for the council, I usually make this known, or just a reminder that once I open the public hearing, it's the city council's opportunity to listen while the members of the public speak, okay? And then after that, after the public is done weighing in or commenting, then I'll just bring it back to the council and we will take action on that. Because ordinances, as we know, have to be introduced and adopted, and that's our goal tonight, okay? All right, so that being said, I will open the public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 130, an ordinance amending the Morris Charter. And I don't know, Blaine, did you want to speak to that at all? Or
Do we need to?
Joel,
do a
maybe,
motion
or-
on second reading first? Or we just jump in?
Well, do we have it on the agenda? If we have it on the agenda, then I think it's, essentially you've already moved to do the second
Okay.
reading, so I think you're good.
All right, so basically this comes out of the Charter Commission. So this is a little bit different than the normal ordinances that we handle. The Charter Commission is tasked with looking at the charter and making recommendations back to the City Council, which they did. And I think after they completed all their work, they actually presented a report to the district court, which they're required to do on their activities. And this ordinance has 2 changes to the charter. They're very minor changes. One has to do with a reference to the State Department, which we really don't want the State Department messing with any of our stuff. So the change is to reference the State of Minnesota Department. So it's basically not necessarily typographical error, but just clarification. And the other reference is changing the notification time period from 12 to 24 hours for having special meetings of the City Council and to make notification also through the city's social media platforms, which we now have. So those are the two changes. The one thing I did talk to Joe about this, and it was actually brought up during the charter meeting. This charter change requires all 5 members to be here, which we have, and all 5 members have to vote in favor of it. In order for, if one person votes against it, then it would go to the ballot to be voted up or down. So, that's what it is.
Okay. Any questions from the council on that? All right, any members of, like to speak to that? You're welcome to come up.
James Stoker, Morris resident. Just one quick question. Where does this go? I know this has to be approved by council. Does it go anywhere else? Does it have to be registered with the court, or what has to go on once it is successfully approved?
So, it's an ordinance. So the next step is tomorrow we'll notify the newspaper that there's an ordinance, and we'll publish it in the newspaper on the next publishing of the newspaper would be next Tuesday. And then I think this one is like the other ones where it has to sit for 30 days. That's the normal process for ordinances. But then it gets incorporated into the charter.
I'd like to thank the members of the Charter Commission. Obviously, this is something we just got rolling again, and appreciate those that volunteered for that. And so our Charter Commission is off and running, so it's a good thing. Any other questions, comments from anybody in the audience? Hearing none, I shall close the public hearing and just bring it back to the council for any final discussion. And again, we have to entertain a motion to adopt that ordinance.
In my mind, and I know, I shouldn't say I know, I would venture to bet that there was a lot of conversation about timing, and specifically I'm looking at item B on this. I would venture to say that how much is too much, how much is not enough, and I appreciate the effort that was put forth on that. In my mind, both of these changes are reasonable. I'd have no problems with adopting any of it. So with that, I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 130, and ordinance amending this Morris City Charter.
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 130, and ordinance amending the Morris City Charter. I'll just ask for a roll call vote in that, please. Carolina?
Councilmember Corrales?
Yes.
Solby?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Gollison?
Yes.
Mayor Wolf?
Yes. Okay, we have citizens' comments, and tonight we have 2 people that have requested to approach the council. First one would be Annette Watson, and followed by Mary Elizabeth Bezanson.
Good evening, Annette Watson, private citizen, live in Morris, Minnesota. I'm just going to talk about the ordinance 129 again tonight, the one that is going to be like the refuse ordinance that's coming up. On subdivision 2 for junk, it labels it 134, so it's missing a number 2 in there. I have been concerned in the past, and I've talked to you guys about it before, that it's just a very specific, very wordy ordinance from what we've had before. Subdivision 10, I believe is absolutely necessary. That is what's missing from what is present in our charter. On letter E, I do believe that there's a principle that you don't want to make unnecessary laws, but I do believe that if you make a law, that what it says is very important, the very words you choose. And so letter E, subdivision 4, says all unnecessary and annoying vibrations. And I'm not really quite sure what that refers to. I feel like there's a giggle back there because somebody's assuming it might be sex in a car. I don't know if you're walking down the street and you hear an air conditioner go and you're like, oh, that's an unnecessary vibration that I'm feeling. I don't know if it's auditory or something you feel in the ground like somebody's boombox. I don't know if somebody's phone keeps pinging all the time. You know, maybe if you're a restaurant and you're like, they're being a public nuisance. I don't know exactly what this is referring to. So I think maybe if there was some language defining that, it would help me understand what this annoying vibration actually means. Letter H invokes that overhanging signs and awnings are to be done as by ordinance. Usually when I read the law, there's a reference to where that leads to in the charter. So if that actually invokes, please follow this ordinance, if it could link it to wherever in our charter that goes to, I would like to see that. Otherwise, I don't know if it means this particular ordinance or what it's actually referring to. But remember how they said that we cut and pasted it from the League of Minnesota? So if it's referring to some ordinance that doesn't even exist in ours, then we would need to know like what that meant by that line ordinance at the end. So I think I have found areas where they conflict with each other or just are verbose and that one just explains the other. But the mandatory collection of refuse, I'm not really quite sure how that works in town, but it's basically saying a person who lives in town always has to pay the person who is approved by town to collect the refuse. And I don't know if this is on the book, if that refers to snowbirds. I don't know how they write their contract up, or if someone doesn't live here in the winter, if they still have to pay that bill. And I wouldn't want to charge someone who's in town who's not actually using the service like they are under mandatory law to pay for the collection of refuse. The subdivision 9, I do feel is like a cut and paste because it says, in my mind, two conflicting things. Maybe you can explain what it means. But it's the first sentence, kills me. It says, city officials may apply and enforce any provision of this ordinance. So since it's may, it's not a shall. So you could, after you put all these words down on the page, you may or may not decide to do or not do something. And then it says that any peace officer, second sentence of subdivision 9, any peace officer or other designated city official shall have the power to inspect private premises. And I feel like this sentence here, that giving them all power, is different from the one that's further down that says, except in emergency situations, no peace officer or designated city official will enter private property. So one gives them all power to enter the private property, and then a few sentences later it says you have no power unless you have written documentation. So I feel like this particular one, you're gonna have to pick and choose which side you're going to go on legally for your city ordinances. And I'm gonna stop there and again say that subdivision 10, that's what we really need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Elizabeth.
January is a time to understand the world in new ways. And in January, I realized that both Blaine and Einstein were right. Blaine, because he says, and I'm sure he shared with you and perhaps others, that every winter Mary Elizabeth shows up to talk about sidewalks and snow. Einstein, because he says insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I've learned that I am both insane and persistent. I'm here to talk about sidewalks and snow. There are 2 lots on East 8th Street and the 300 block that have lost their houses, and their sidewalks are not being cleaned. And I don't know who owns that land, but that's not neighborly. What I would suggest, since we seem to be overwhelmed right now with snow and ice on sidewalks, is that the city focuses on the sidewalks that move over the rail tracks. So at Common Cup, to get to Casey's, there is no clearing of this, I don't even know if there is a sidewalk. There's no clearing of the space that pedestrians would normally walk in, so they must walk in the street, which I find very dangerous. On 7th Street, between the bank and Johnson Green and Feed, the sidewalk in front of Johnson Green and Feed is not cleared. So the snow was brushed off recently perhaps, but the ice pack shows footprints, which means that when it was actually melting, no one shoveled it. That needs to be removed. In spite of what we might wish, there are people in this town who don't have vehicles, who must walk. And where they generally walk is either to get coffee or to get coffee at the Super Value. So I urge the city to continue to work to get homeowners to clear sidewalks of snow and ice and to clear the sidewalks to the street to protect pedestrians.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth.
By the way, I think it will be winter again next year. I'll probably be back.
Okay, thank you. All right, we shall, unless there's anybody else that would like to approach the council that hasn't already indicated that they would like to, we'll move on to our reading and approval of our meeting minutes from January 13th, 2026, and those would be our regular meeting minutes.
I will move approval of the regular meeting minutes for January 13th.
I will second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve our January 13th, 2026 regular meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next before us is our condensed version of those same minutes from January 13th, 2026.
I'll move approval of the condensed minutes from January 13th, 2026.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve our January 13th, 2026 condensed version of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we can move on to our consent agenda, which tonight consists of our audit of city bills, our gambling reports, Morris Public Library Board meeting minutes from December 10th, 2025, application to conduct excluded bingo, Morris Area Women of Today, application for exempt permit, Minnesota Deer Hunters Association and Pomme de Terre, and then the last item, 2025 annual report to the Morris City Council from the Morris Tree Board. And I will move approval of the items on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'll bring it back to the city council for any discussion on any of those items on the consent agenda. Yeah, when I was reading through the tree board report, you look back on the year, there was a lot of stuff done last year. A lot of trees planted, we had the tree giveaway. So we're very, very lucky to have a active tree board and a lot of people that are passionate about that. So I do want to just give a shout out to everybody that was involved in that. It's really amazing when you step back and look at all the stuff that happened. Any other discussion from the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. I'll just ask for a voice vote on that, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We shall move on to our petitions, requests, and communications. The first item up is an appointment to our boards. And I think the one we have is, we have a couple of them, don't we? We have Planning Commission, Brad Zimmel, right?
Yes.
And then so we'll deal with one at a time then? And then we also have Tom Holm.
You could
the
probably
tree
do them
board.
both at the same
We can
time.
do
Can we just do them both at the same time? Okay.
That's what we did last month.
Any discussion from members of the council? I again thank everybody that volunteers, and it's much appreciated.
I would express what you did. Thanks for Brad for coming forward and Tom for reserving on the tree board. It's nice that people are coming forth to serve on some of these boards. So I would move approval of these two appointments to the following boards.
I will second that.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion by any members of the council? All right, I guess what we'll do is I'll just ask for a voice vote on that, please. All those in favor of the appointments of Tom Holm to the tree board and Brad Zimmel to the planning commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next before us is change order number 5, Morris Municipal Liquor Store. I don't know, Blaine, you want to speak to that a bit, or?
It's pretty simple when you look at it. They're just gonna make 2 changes, add a laundry tub in the storage room, and revise the wiring for the cooler beer cave fan coils. So the total is $7,951. We're still under what the contract amount was because of previous change orders. I did, just so you know, I did sneak in there. One of the construction guys was coming out, and so I caught him and I snuck in there and looked, and that's going to be a fantastic place. Very, very big, and they're insulating it this week, so they can get some heat in there. It's kind of hard to heat it when it's this cold, but yeah, so it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, I can wait because we'll have to wait, but it's going to be exciting when we do the old christening, I suppose. Huh? I suppose we'll have to christen it, Joe? Grab a bottle of the good stuff and
That might be a good idea.
all right, we have a motion. Well, let's see. We don't have a motion, I don't think yet. I guess I can move on that change order number 5 for the Morris Municipal Liquor Store.
No second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion by members of the council? Hearing none, I'll just ask for a voice vote on that, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next before us is our first reading of ordinance number 129, an ordinance regulating public nuisances within the city of Morris, Minnesota. And again, this is a first reading. There will be an opportunity at the second reading, once again, for members of the public. But Blaine, you want to speak maybe to that again a little bit, or no? Or
Yeah, and I just make a general comment, because we had a comment up in front of the meeting that basically was throwing into the meeting changes to the ordinance. And there will be an opportunity for the public to have input on the ordinances. And that's when we have the second reading and the public hearings on it. But I would say this, if you read an ordinance and don't really understand it and want it to be clarified for you as an individual, that's different than somebody that's going to have to interpret the ordinance when they're the ones that are enforcing it. So everything that was talked about, I understand fully exactly what we've dealt with in the past when you're dealing with things like noise and vibration and stuff like that. And you can assume there's other things that are going to happen, but in the end, you also won't have everything in an ordinance. So this ordinance is actually an ordinance that you've talked about quite a bit at the council meeting. And so then I think it was Tegan did the final write of this ordinance. And the only thing that Joe and I talked about today, We did have somebody that suggested that if you're gonna change a section of an ordinance that's already there, that you should probably repeal the ordinance and then put in the brand-new section. We'll see that when it comes up into the code changes that I'm recommending. And so we certainly could do that if we need to before the second reading and the public hearing. Anytime you make a change specific to a section, repeal that section and just rewrite it. What I do is I provide you a pretty lengthy description of what is going to be changed. This one you guys already worked on, but when you get into the next one and the one beyond that. So I would just make that statement that the public hearing is the time for the public to weigh in on the ordinances. Now it's your time to look at the ordinances and see if there's anything in there that you think you need to deal with. And I did look it over, and I think some of the changes that were made before by the city council were good. And I can tell you that I have sitting on the table right now an enforcement issue that you've already dealt with before on a piece of property on the west side, that we need this ordinance to be finalized so that we can take the final step in how to deal with that piece of property and other properties like it.
Oh, good segue, Blaine. I do have really one thing, and I'm just wondering, I think it spins off of subparagraph 9, the duties of city officers, city officials may apply and enforce any provision of this ordinance. We speak about city officers enforcing this. Do we need to specify who the city officers are, or do we know who's actually going to be enforcing this at the city level? I know we have public peace officers, that would be obviously our law enforcement, but it's an enforcement question, and I think we did briefly we talked about it in our work session, but do we have a clear idea? And the answer I think that was given by City Manager Schrupp at that time was her and our Public Works Director were going to be the people that were going to go out and enforce it. Do we need to specify that any clearer than that, or no? Or do we know? I mean, I don't know how.
I think, I did see some of that discussion that took place. The city manager is the one that enforces it. So the city manager, and I've seen where the Public Works Director has actually written letters that I would say I wouldn't want the Public Works Director writing the letters. Public Works Director deals with things like going out and looking at sidewalks and lawns and stuff like that. But when you get into junk and debris and cars and stuff like that, it used to be that we'd work with the chief of police on that, but now we work with the sheriff on that. But I think overall, it's the city manager that does it, or one of the suggestions that I think I made was that in the past, the city manager's been designated as the zoning administrator to watch over all the zoning stuff, because I can tell you since I've been back, there's a lot of zoning questions that come up with, and not just something you might see on the council table, but just trying to understand what are the zoning rules and who looks them up for you. We do have a company that does building inspection and stuff like that, and they know and understand how that works, but typically it's the city manager that works on all this stuff. And if you say the city manager, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not gonna have somebody do a letter, or, I might write up something, but it's gonna be sent out by somebody else, and then they watch over it actually and let me know when it's time to come back and do something different. But
Should we just say that, the city manager then, instead of city officers? I mean, that would maybe clarify things a little bit, or no?
yeah, that would probably be good. I think, I don't know.
Okay, what language are we on? Subdivision.
Where it says city
Subdivision 9,
officials.
page 6.
You want
May
to change
apply.
the duties of the city officers, or just to say city officials? That first sentence, city official, change that to city manager?
Yeah,
May
that's-
apply? Yeah.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking would make sense, but
Well, it gets a little trickier when you have a situation where maybe the city manager is delegating, so I don't know that you'd have to change it.
Okay,
The city manager is.
the city
The city-
official.
A city official
And you
and
may
all the other
delegate
people.
to the
That's a
city
good point,
attorney,
yeah.
who would be also a city official.
All right,
The other,
I was just, I was
yeah,
just
the other
wondering.
thing I would say is that, I'll say this, I've said it before, the city council's heard it, I don't know if Zach's heard it. We do not enforce our code by inspection. We enforce our code by complaint. So the word shall means something different than may. So it doesn't mean that you're, when we find out somebody, for instance, this issue that I just talked about, we got a complaint from the neighbors again that this needs to be dealt with, and that's really the prompt to go out. There are times that we can go out and look at things and see stuff on the roads, like unlicensed vehicles or things like that, but in the end, that code book is this thick, and we don't have anybody that goes out and takes that code and inspects everything. So it may be enforced, it may not be enforced, depending on what's happening. And I've had people say, why don't you go out and do something about it? And it's like, do something about what? Okay, now I know what you're looking at, and you can go ahead and do it.
Okay. So the consensus is we just leave it the same then, as it's written, okay? Good discussion,
Unless
thank
want
you.
to say the city manager or the
Yep.
city managers or a city official designated by the manager, I don't know. It's up to you.
It's fine. Yeah, I just thought it'd be worth having a little chat about, so, good conversation, thank you. Any other discussion on that ordinance from members of the council? It is the first reading, of course, so we'll have an opportunity to chat again in February. I guess I can move on the first reading of ordinance number 129, an ordinance regulating public nuisances within the city of Morris.
I will second.
Any further discussion before we put her to a vote? Hearing none, I will just ask for a voice vote on that, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next before us, item D, first reading of ordinance number 131, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Morris pertaining to railroad tracks and railroad spur tracks. And Blaine, I'm gonna bring that back over to you.
Yeah, and just so you know, I don't know that we've ever had multiple public hearings on ordinances in the past. I don't know if I ever remember one, but you'll notice that I'm setting them 10 minutes apart, just so that people know that when they're gonna be on the agenda and they're gonna be discussed. We have no idea how long they're gonna last, so it's really difficult to set a time on it. But this one actually came out of the planning commission. So one of the issues that came up was we have Denco 2. It's an industrial business that takes corn and makes ethanol out of it. They came and they indicated that they want to do more with rail shipping of ethanol. Right now they do a lot with trucks, they do some with rail, but they don't have enough room to be able to store rail cars to be able to fill them and then get them ready to go onto a train. And so they came and they were wondering about adding a spur line, 2, 3 maybe of them, coming from their business that they have already, and then it crosses County Road 22 over to their land that they have on the west side of County Road 22, which currently is in a municipal conservancy zone. Their plant is in a I-2 heavy industrial zone. So it's probably the first time in my career that we ever had a project that covered 2 different zones. At the same time, the property that they do have on the west side of County Road 22, they do have a big lot, corn storage bin area, where they do store corn there. Further to the northwest and to the west is wetland kind of area. And then of course you have Lake Crystal, which is a state wildlife area. And when we met with the planning commission, we were trying to figure out, number one, could they do it? Because it's not, rail tracks and rail spur tracks are not identified in the codes. They you know, it's one of those items where when they're doing the codes, nobody thought that there's gonna be railroad tracks on a piece of property like this business where they're gonna be loading rail cars. And yet at the same time, if you look at the zoning map of the city, every railroad line in the city of Morris, except for the one that goes by the south side of Lake Crystal, is designated as heavy industrial. So all the railroad tracks are heavy industrial except there. And so then the planning commission, the solution they came up with was to recommend to the city council that you do an ordinance to change the zoning of that railroad line that goes west from County Road 22 past Highway 28 to the edge of our zoning to heavy industrial. And then any of these spur track lines be put into a heavy industrial zone. So I did provide to you a map that actually, it would changed a little bit from when we met in the planning commission, just because we had to have them show us exactly where the land was. And then ultimately they have the corn storage bin, and so they're gonna be bringing possibly a track around the outside of that, and then they're gonna have maybe 2-3 tracks that are gonna be in there. And so this seemed like it was a pretty good solution to it. We do know that we do not wanna, we don't wanna impact the wetlands and stuff like that, but at the same time, the interesting part about this is it is better in the world of sustainability and everything to ship this ethanol by rail than all the trucks that are going on the highway. And actually MnDOT has a policy where they encourage that to do as much rail shipping as you can because it's better for the road system and stuff. So that's the recommendation, to have the second reading at that same next council meeting, the 24th. This one would be at 5:30
Yes.
would be this hearing on this.
What do you mean by a railroad spur track?
It's just a side track.
Oh, okay.
Side track where they
So-
set cars
so the main
until the
track,
train
yeah.
comes in, and then the train, BN will come in and collect them all. So there are some side tracks in the downtown area where they set stuff for the grain elevators.
There'll be less semi-traffic on our business district coming in and out of town. Like you say, the safety concerns, wear and tear on the roads. It's gonna improve the financial picture for the ethanol plant, because from some that I've talked with said they get a better rate on stuff being shipped out by the rail. So I think if we can do something to help a business in town without doing a drastic change to any of their surroundings or making any major changes to where we're at. I mean, adding some tracks along where there are tracks on property they already own. So saying that, I would like to move approval of the first reading of the ordinance number 131, amending the zoning map of the city of Morris pertaining to railroad tracks and railroad spur tracks.
I will second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, I'll just ask for a voice vote on the first reading of ordinance number 131, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Morris pertaining to railroad tracks and railroad spur tracks. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, item E. Again, another first reading. This one is the first reading of ordinance number 132, an ordinance amending various code sections pertaining to boards and commissions. And I'll bring it back to Blaine, maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think what I mentioned at the beginning, I think the way that we would do this ordinance is, because the way it's written right now, it shows you what language is in there with some of the changes in each one of those. And so then what we would actually do is take out the section, repeal each one of the sections, and then put the actual language of the section as it's gonna be with the changes. Does that make sense to the attorney? So like for this, we would repeal section 1,
Yes.
and then we would write section 1 to be added with whatever the changes are. But it would happen for all of those. So you just have a line that says repealed and then put in. So then ultimately, what I would ask you to do is look at the changes to make sure that, what I tried to do is I tried to look at everything that was in code, look at some of the things that you wanted to do when you're looking at your city boards and commissions guidelines, and then try to standardize stuff. And we talked about this. I did go to, I think, every one of the board meetings and mentioned it to them about, you know, what they thought about terms and things like that. Obviously, there's a couple issues that rose to the top. One of them is we do require that you be a citizen of the city to be on our boards and commissions, and that language will be in there, except for there's a couple places where you can't do that, like the library board has got state statute that sets some of the rules and things like that. At the same time, you don't want people to be on more than one board. You put that in your guideline. You have the ultimate authority to appoint people. So when you look at this ordinance, and I can just kind of walk us through it. I added the office of vice chair. You'll see that in there, because we'll have a chair and a vice chair. Struck the language about, because you actually in section 2.50 had the authority to appoint somebody from outside the city limits if you wanted. Mm-hmm. That was in 2.5, so took that out. And then for some reason, one section had he in there, and so I put he, she in there, because that's probably the best way to deal with that. If you look at the Airport Advisory Board, set the term to 3 years, and that's going to be the standard term, 3 years, unless otherwise designated. Park Board, set the term to 3 years. Tree Board, set the term to 3 years and change to indicate the Public Works Director is the city forester. That's already been established. Change, and then for some reason later in the tree board section, it called the city forester the urban forester. So we just changed that language to city forester. Set the planning commission to 3 years. And then the tourism board actually had language that limited members to 2 terms. And I got the understanding, I was talking to the mayor, I don't think that was your intention to limit to 2 terms, anybody. So then tourism board's the only one that had it, so we took that out.
Yeah, having been on the tourism board, I think Kim has been
that's-
on it, Jeff's on it currently. It's a pretty involved board, and it takes a while to get, wrap yourself around all of those things. So, when you get people that are willing to serve on 2 terms or even beyond, I guess I don't know why we would restrict that, because I think it's really a value to have somebody there long term.
And then just one more thing that was in there, I guess I didn't finish it. And then in the tourism, no, that was my fault. In the tourism board language, it gave the Chamber of Commerce priority in making recommendations for the tourism board. And I struck that out, and it really goes back to, I was the one that created all of this, because when I first got here in 2007, we passed a lodging tax, and part of the lodging tax created a tourism board, and we were working very directly, closely with the Chamber of Commerce. Actually had an individual within the Chamber of Commerce that was working on tourism, and now it's kind of morphed into basically us. The Chamber manager is still gonna be part of the board always, but, it just seemed like that language didn't seem to be, useful anymore. Cause we haven't been getting any, recommendations from the chamber. We haven't been getting a lot from the chamber. And we're trying to kind of fix that link and stuff, but, in the end, the board will make a recommendation, and then you just go from there. So then, that's what I had so far. There's some other stuff that's gonna come up in the guidelines, just a few things.
Yeah, I think too, Blaine, just to add into the history part of that, at one time, they had a director and a co-director.
Right.
You know, and then that got to be a little bit confusing, so, but, yeah, thanks for catching that, I think it makes sense.
But also to add, any of these boards are a public, open forum. If somebody wants to come to any of those meetings, they're welcome. If we have a citizen from our town, our city wants to serve on the board, should have precedence over somebody that doesn't. There's some people that are very sincere on the different projects, and they can still come and give their 2 cents worth for any of the projects and still not be on the board, but come and participate. So just, you're still welcome to help and to do things for the betterment of our community. Just, it should be a space reserved for people that reside in our city to be on the boards, I feel.
Makes sense to me.
I only have one question, and this is, I just don't know how it's written into contract and whatever. So for tree board, right, stating that city forester shall be the public works director, are we mandating that public work, Russ retires, right? Are we mandating whoever fills in there is going to, okay,
Yeah, and that's.
just for my knowledge more than anything.
And they need to be a certified arborist,
Okay.
you know, and that's, yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks, Blaine. Any questions from our city manager on that ordinance? Let us entertain a motion then. If there's no further discussion.
I will move approval of the first reading on ordinance number 132, amending the various city board sections, city code sections pertaining to boards and commissions.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second for the first reading of ordinance number 132, and ordinance amending various city code sections pertaining to boards and commissions. Thanks again for your help on that, Blaine. And I'll just ask for a voice vote on that, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next before us, we have an announcement, or we're going to announce the 3 finalists for our city manager vacancy. Very exciting day for the city of Morris. I can kind of just walk you through the process and really kind of how things shook out here. As you may or may not know, we hired David Drone and Associates. They were our search firm, and we used them, of course, last time when we hired Becca, and we used them again this go around. And we were fortunate to get originally 17 applicants, and from there DDA vetted that number down to 8. The hiring committee, which consisted of myself, Councilmember Miller, and 3 staff persons, Whitney Millard, Maggie Bussey, and Stacy Mogard. We made up the hiring committee. We did meet this morning, and we vetted those 8 individuals down to 3 that we're going to invite in for interviews. And of course, they have been contacted and they've agreed to come to the interviews. So at this point, their information and their names are public. Patrick Melvin sent us not only their names, but a brief bio, and Olivia, you'll be receiving that, so you can publish that. But I'd like to announce the 3 individuals. Jason Baker, Holly Wilson, and Zoe Johnson are the three finalists. And I'm not gonna get into really a whole lot of details about each one of the candidates. So that information will be public and posted in the bio, so I encourage the members of the public to look for that in the paper. And we are very, very lucky, in my view. We had several good applicants, very qualified. Several had a lot of experience. I think it speaks well it's a good testament, it speaks well for our community that we had that many people that were interested in our community. So, and I want to thank members of the hiring committee and for all their work. And I guess that's it. It's kind of a big day in the history of our city. We really don't need to take any action on that at all unless there's any questions from members of the council.
Just, we're gonna remind the council that our day for
Yes.
interviews,
February
Will be-
19th.
a Thursday.
Yes, Jeff, thank you. February 19th is a Thursday. And that is we're gonna use really the same format that we used the last time. And that will be open to the public. We're gonna have 3 hiring stations, just like we had last time. There will be a group located over at the library. That will be the citizens panel. And we have identified members of the citizens panel. We've contacted some of those already, and we're waiting to hear back on it'll be a 5-person panel made up of members of the citizens at large. I'm not gonna announce those people yet because we're still waiting to hear if they can work it into their schedule. But we are gonna have a 5-member citizens panel. And then the members of the city council and the mayor will meet in here at this location, council chambers. And then the second station will be over at City Hall in the conference room there. And what we did last time is the candidates just rotated through each of the various stations. And DDA prepared all the questions for us, so pretty straightforward.
Well, we worked with them on the questions
Yep.
that we're gonna present the interviewer, or if we go through with the different interviewers, but to present the same questions to all 3 candidates.
That's right, that is
That's
correct.
gonna be an approved format.
Yep.
And then just to add that the council portion of that would be open to the public, not for public participation in it, but the other 2 will not be open to the public, just the section of it that is done here at the council chambers. If somebody wants to sit in, they're welcome to. It is a public process, so.
Yep.
And I would like to have the council here, City Hall, at about 8:45 that morning. We're gonna do, like we did last time, do a tour with the candidates and just do a tour around town before we start the interview process. So it'll be, if you can be here at 8:45-ish, and it's gonna be pretty much most of the day.
Are we gonna be able to, is there just set questions that we're gonna be able to ask, or can council members ask them any question?
I think we pretty much stuck to the format.
I think if you ask the same question to each person, then but I'd check with the guy, but usually,
If there's something you would like to ask, I would suggest that you present it to the committee or Patrick, who's gonna oversee the whole works, but if there's something that we can include it with the questions that will be asked of everybody, but
When do we get to see the questions?
Yeah.
Well, you'll see,
Candidates.
yeah, we're working on that through now. They're gonna follow, I think some of them will be very similar to the questions we asked last time. But once he gets those questions finalized, he'll send those to City Hall, Maggie, and, the hiring committee. And then we can include you guys in that too, or,
Well, I mean, I don't want it to be finalized before I see the list of
I know
questions.
that.
If I wanted
Yeah.
to add
Yeah.
a question to
Your
it
input.
that was concerning to myself,
maybe
whether-
what you could do is just, send that question or the questions that you want to.
Well, I mean,
City-
I'd rather see that because maybe my question is
Already
already asked.
included.
It might already be on there.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah,
I don't
Kim's
wanna
point, we
do
wanna
that.
keep things consistent and fair.
Correct.
to all.
but that's what I would ask him, if it's consistent and fair.
Right.
If I ask a question, is it fair and consistent to ask each candidate
Right.
the same question?
Oh,
Because
okay.
that's what I meant, is
Okay.
then
Oh, okay, I
asking,
gotcha.
so if something
Yeah.
comes up as you're hearing this, cause I
Could be a
didn't
qualifying
participate.
question or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't participate in the last interview,
Right.
but when I have interviewed
Yep.
people, it's like, as long as you ask the same question, so then there's no bias, you're hearing how they're answered, because that's the thing, here's something, and then
Yep.
if you can't ask a question.
Yep.
It seems like it's like, well, how is that gonna follow through, or how, like, if something comes up, so if we could ask,
Yep,
is it Dave?
it's a good point. It's Patrick.
Patrick, sorry.
Yeah. It's a good point. And I think what we'll do then is, once the questions, when I said finalize, Brian, I meant that Patrick
Sure.
puts forward.
Okay.
He can send those to us, and then we can look them over, and if we want to add something to that, that would be the time, to get your feedback, and you can say, yeah, I like it, but maybe we should ask this. And then we can add.
And then I guess my second question is this, after this process, do we have to choose one of the three?
You'll choose a top candidate and an alternate out of the three.
What if we choose no one? I mean, it's just a question. I mean, it's been proposed to me by some members of the community, is that if you don't agree, or you're not in
That would
compliance,
be
you
a
don't like
That would
any
be a
of them, I
Patrick
mean,
question, I
do
guess.
we as the committee or the council have to accept one of the three that we put forward? I don't
Have
know.
to,
Any
if
of
there's
them.
a reason that we don't, we start our re-advertise the
again.
process and go again, but
Somebody asked me and I'm like, well, I'm really
It's a
not
valid
sure, so
question.
I'm gonna ask.
It would be like anything we do as a council, if we
Right.
don't, like, we just, yeah. start the
unhappy with
process.
what the results we get, and you think that, that they're not gonna be able to take care of the position, or
Okay.
Well, and I don't know, that vote has to be unanimous, right? Because the council appoints that position. So, I mean, if, say, one person voted no, or two people, I don't know.
I don't know.
Does
Does it
I'm
have
not
to be
aware
two?
that you need a
I think it
unanimous.
would
I think
just
you
be
need
a
a
single.
Majority, like anything.
I think you need a
like-
majority
yeah.
I think it would just be a
Majority.
majority.
But I can still need to take a vote to offer someone the
Right.
position,
Right.
so
Correct.
I guess if you don't offer it, you don't offer
And
it.
it would be a simple majority, correct?
Yeah,
Not
simple,
a super
yeah.
majority?
So, I mean, to your point, Brian, if for some
Sure.
reason we
Okay.
nominated this person, and at that point, if you didn't like that person or candidate, you just
Okay.
vote no.
Mhm.
Okay.
The one thing I would tell you, you're gonna select somebody, and then you're gonna make them an offer. I can tell you, if I had a split council, I would probably be a little bit leery about taking that offer.
Yeah.
Just, from my own perspective as somebody that's been in that situation where you go through interviews and stuff like that.
but as Kevin had said, that they're asking, and we did last time, to pick a first choice, and for some reason, if they don't take the position or have taken a position
Sure.
somewhere else, for us to have a second choice,
Yep.
so we can just proceed with our second choice if the first is taken employment somewhere else, or decided personal reasons of, my dog's sick, I wanna stay home and take care of my dog, I don't have time to deal with the new, which Patrick this
Yeah.
morning talking with him said,
Yeah.
that a gal was hired for a
happened.
position and just said, I'm dealing with other things in my life right now, and my dog's not well, so no, I won't take the position,
Yeah.
which is like, and he said it's a pretty good bump from what she had been making, but that's just a choice that an applicant has, that if, after further consideration.
Yep.
So just, that would be what we would like to do, or the recommendation from the firm, so.
Yeah, I was very happy with the process. Again, very happy with Patrick and DDA and all the work that they did, and very professional. I mean, all the information that we received, we had opportunities to look at video interviews of all the candidates, and they had answered about 5 or 6 questions, and then we had an opportunity to look at and review their answers and how they presented themselves on a video interview. And so, I mean, the whole process was I was pretty pleased.
Anyone that was not offered a final interview of the 3 were contacted today just to notify them, so, and it's all confidential from the committee, the information that we received and went through. If anyone that's employed and doesn't want their employer to know about it, the
Yep.
reasoning being that that's why it stays confidential,
Yep.
so there, like I say, was some quality, and there was people around that you're really thankful that did apply, that just missed out on some areas of it, but yeah, just thankful for people to show their interest.
Yeah, and that's really a good point, Jeff. I mean, I want to thank all the applicants out there, whether they were asked to be one of the finalists or not. And wish them all the best in their future endeavors. 'Cause
Yeah,
It's a good deal. All right. If there's no other questions about that, we will move on. We have a couple of resolutions for tonight before us, so we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. The first ordinance is first resolution, I'm sorry, is a resolution authorizing an interfund transfer.
Yeah, this is the one that we do every year to balance out our funds. If we have funds that don't have the cash to cover what their expenses are in their fund, and all of these are grant funded projects. So if you look at the financial reports for them, they're not in the red. They actually have grant money that's going to be coming in that's going to replace, what we put in there. But this is something we do every year to make sure all the funds are balanced at the end of the year cash-wise.
I will move on the resolution authorizing the interfund loan.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second approving the resolution authorizing an interfund loan transfer. I'll just ask for a roll call vote on that resolution, please. Carolina?
Councilmember Solby,
Yes.
Correll,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes. Okay, we have a resolution approving the updated boards and commission guidelines. And I guess, Blaine, if you want to just wrap that up, I guess you can.
Yeah, so we'll see if I've got all the changes identified, but we did have in your guidelines, there was a sentence in there that the chair could only, was limited to 2 consecutive terms, which I don't know if that's what you meant to do, but if you look at like the planning commission, the chair's been there for quite a while and actually does a very good job in that position. I don't know if the chair's gonna be extending for another term, but I did strike that one out. And then I struck out bylaws. I don't know how we got to bylaws. I don't know if you were part of any discussion on bylaws, but somehow we got bylaws, and bylaws are much stricter than just having your standing rules. The city council does standing rules, and so I'm thinking, and I don't know if, it didn't sound like all the committees passed their bylaws. So I don't know if they all got out. I know I've seen bylaw documents for all the committees, but each committee should have their own standing rules on how they're gonna operate as a committee. And then in some cases, the bylaws had different things than what was in the city codes. Like with terms, I ran into one board that had one term length here, another term length there. They understood the term length was something completely different than what we're doing. And so then I think that's what they should do. So I struck out where it talked about bylaws and then just inserted standing rules. And then I put this in there, and I think it's important. I think the city council maybe talked about this. There is a section in the guidelines. When you're a member of a board or a commission, you're there for the board and commission. Once you get done with your work, you go out the door and you're done. You do not represent that board or commission anywhere else. So if you're going to be speaking in a public hearing on an issue, you cannot represent the board and commission. And that's happened in the past. And I think that's what you're attempting to do. So there is a sentence in there under acting as, there's actually, the title is acting as a private citizen. Insert the sentence at the beginning indicating board and commission members do their work in the respective meetings. And that's what you do. And I've said that about the city council too. Where the city council, you do all your work at the table. And then I did standardize, because in some places it said boards and commissions, in some places it said boards, in some places it said commissions. So I think we're always talking about boards and commissions. So I just tried to standardize that a little bit. And that's pretty much it, because you did everything else with the city codes. you know, to kind of get that in line. And this is the guideline for how you guys deal with boards and commissions. So it's a good document to have.
Thanks for making those changes. I don't have a problem with any of them. They all make sense to me and kind of long overdue. I mean, well, we continue to tweak this. I mean, this isn't our first conversation we've had about this, so just a work in progress. And I think, like Blaine said, I think the finished product here looks pretty good to me. Until the next reiteration, I guess.
I do have a couple questions, like the staff liaison, does that happen?
Well,
I mean, does that even need to be in there then if we don't have a staff liaison?
so initially I
Board and commission.
took the whole thing out, because we don't have staff liaisons. We
No.
have staff that, yeah, and I didn't want to like make too many big changes and stuff like that, but basically there's staff that are assigned to be with board. You know, we have a staff member here at the city council. There's a staff member that comes to the planning commission. Typically it used to be the building inspector and city manager would be at the planning commission meetings. The city forester goes to the tree board meetings, and actually as the public works director goes to the park board meetings. So, but I don't know if you need any of that in there, or how you would word that, because we never use that term. That's the first time I ever saw that term, staff liaisons. You know, and then the city manager actually is designated as like an ex officio member of every board. But I would never go to all the boards. It just takes too much time. But at the same time, you know, I would coordinate with the staff people that are there at those meetings. So if you want to get rid of staff liaisons, you can do that. There's a whole paragraph in there.
Yeah, I mean, when you pointed that out, yes, they do go, but then there's still boards that don't.
Yeah.
And are we okay? I mean, I'm okay, because each council member sits on a
Right.
board as well.
Right.
So the you know, as a staff member, you're going because that's your interest and you need to be there doing what, but sometimes it makes it look like you're staff liaison, facilitator, assist with meetings, record attendance, provide, you know, do they do
Yeah,
that?
and you know, we have some really good citizens that
Yeah,
do, like, for instance, the tree board, you know, do the minutes, do the park board,
yeah,
do the minutes and stuff like that. And actually now with Jim Nealon at the airport advisory board does that kind of stuff. So
this is kind of saying if there is a staff liaison, if a staff member is present, they should be doing
right,
the
Correct.
minutes. And is that what the intent is here? Then,
yeah, that wouldn't be my intent. So if it wasn't your intent, I would just strike it
yeah,
out of there.
I'm okay with that.
And then, as I indicated in my memo, you know, whatever changes you have, then I'll just print the final one and then give it back out to you.
So does that need to be a motion to strike the staff liaison paragraph in here?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to do that.
And then
Okay.
you'll bring it back next month, or next meeting,
Or we,
Well, you
we
can
just
approve
adopt,
it, you can
adopt this and then we're done
with
with it.
with those changes.
You could approve it with the
Yep.
change.
Approve it
of
with those
striking the
changes.
staff
Okay, yeah,
liaison.
that makes sense. All right,
I'm just trying to think. And then the other thing in orientation, does that happen?
No.
I would like to see that happen. I think it's really important for new members coming on to a
Yes.
commission and a board that they get an like, I don't know how many times people come and it just takes them like 8 months before they even know, why am I here? What are we doing? You know what I mean? Maybe
Correct.
not that long, but I would like to see that.
But
being
I
done.
would leave it in there, yeah.
Well-
I think it's a really good idea to do that.
Mhm.
I would like to see that done, but with that, the first two words are staff liaisons
Yeah.
in that section.
Well, you could just put,
Staff
you could just
members,
put staff, city staff.
city staff.
But now you're gonna have this guideline too, and that's gonna give some pretty good information. And then they should get a copy of the guideline, they should get a copy of the city code that talks about it. But then you could also, in that standing, if they do standing rules, that gives them a better idea of
Mhm.
how do we actually operate in here, because sometimes it's kind of confusing for people to know and understand
Absolutely, and that's where an orientation with a staff
Yeah.
member, it's be consistent then, and not up to some member of the board or commission
Right.
to introduce them to what they do, because that can become like not as consistent and regular as a staff person, so.
Yep.
I think it's a good deal with all these changes, so I'm gonna make the motion to approve the resolution approving the updated boards and commission guidelines with the revision to strike the staff liaison, and in orientation, replace staff liaison with city staff.
I will second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second approving the resolution, the update, for the updated boards and commission guidelines with the amended changes that were stated regarding striking some of that language with the liaison in a couple of different locations. If there's no further discussion, I will ask Carolina for a roll call vote on that resolution, please.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes,
Corrals,
Yes.
Solby,
Yes.
Mayor Wooler.
Yes. Okay, down to the city manager's newsletter.
Yeah, I'll just touch on a couple things here. Our pay equity report got approved immediately. So that was good. That was probably the fastest that happened. I have noticed that the state of Minnesota, for
moving
whatever
quick.
reason, they're moving pretty fast with most of the stuff that you do. You know, and I had to, because I changed email addresses for things that I have to log on to, they wouldn't let me in. So then I had to contact them to change my email, and it was like instantly, within less than probably 15 minutes. So I don't know what they're doing down there, but they're really on top of things. We had a water main break over on West A Street, and in the end, it was kind of a messy thing because it was a pipe that broke in the alley that was, there's a problem with another connector pipe, and there was some electrical in there and stuff. And then ultimately, after they got it fixed, there was something else that happened anytime they're digging, they'll find stuff that nobody knows is even there and stuff like that. But because the site wasn't stable, when they went through to plow, they damaged a truck coming through, which is not good. So we're working with the insurance company to figure out what to do with that truck that came through that alley. But we did get the water main break, but that's an area that we need to be looking at. And we've talked about that before, that we're probably gonna be going over into that area in 2028, because we have to do some stuff on the east side. And then there was one other, I mentioned that when I did the budget, I assumed that all the stuff that was in the budget was all the stuff that everybody wanted. And yet there was a couple items that wasn't maybe on a list, but they were never ever told that that's what was chosen from the list when it got approved. And so if you look at this one item where we had in the budget for a chassis for a dump truck, and then we had in the budget a piece of blacktop tar patching equipment, and in the end, what they wanted was they wanted two chassis, and they weren't going to do the tar patching machine. And so we made that adjustment. And just so you know, the budget numbers didn't change. Actually, this was a better line item because in the end, it was cheaper to buy two chassis than to do one plus the tar patching machine. But I think there's a little bit of disconnect that I saw between, what actually was requested. There's some 5-year plan things that were laid on the table that were picked off of and stuff like that. But I did go out and talk with the public works director and the fleet manager, and we talked about some stuff. And when the new city manager comes, I plan on being around to answer questions and things like that. Otherwise, the rest of the stuff on there, you can see, I spent time working with all the boards and stuff, and there's all kinds of things happening in each one of the boards. Everybody's doing good work, and lots of busy things going on. So we'll be working on those things coming up here.
I just want to add on that AED pedestals, that the SCMC, the hospital, had contacted the park board, or a member on the park board, if they were able to purchase a pedestal to put it up, and then if the park board was interested in trying to find sponsors, that would be an annual fee to basically maintain and oversee to make sure the batteries are charged, the pads are good, and that supplies electricity for cooling and heating those devices. But just wanted to know, to have the council support to do something of that type, to put an AED pedestal potentially in some of our parks. And I stopped and talked to Blaine on that last week after our meeting, but they would just like to make sure that the council's fine with them going ahead and pursuing something like that. The city's responsibility would probably be to put down a concrete pad and getting the electricity to the device. But, and I'm talking with Blaine, said, you know, within reason, to try to not have them everywhere, but to start out and see how it is. And I stopped and talked with the ambulance service. They've done a great job in our community, in different businesses and around in the parks now. And they were gonna work back and forth and try and get a few more details on it, but just plan on pursuing it. And ideally, I'd say it'd be nice if we could find sponsors and to do up to 3 of them just in some of the parks around the community, so that there's strategically around the edges. So if somebody needs the assistance of an AED, they know that there's one in Eagles Ballpark or out to Green River Park or at Wells Park. Just throwing it out there so you're aware of what they're potentially looking at doing and making sure the council's behind it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. So would our guys then do the concrete work for that?
Russ was at our meeting and they basically said, you know, is that possible? And he seemed to be on board with it, just trying to figure out to put it. And when I talked with Blaine, putting it probably close to a building we currently have, if it's a restroom or some facility where we have the electricity, have things close to it instead of out way off by itself. That would be expensive to run electricity out or to do something like that. But Russ was going to make a list of what he thought were some of the top priority spots out of the parks or out of the bathrooms. I had figured, you know, someplace where we currently have the electricity. So just going to pursue it further if it's agreeable with the council and see what we find out. But like I said, you know, if you can save one person with it.
Yeah, the big thing I shared with them is that, because we ran into this with the park benches, the people raising funds for park benches did such a good job, and they had so many of them. But you know, when we first started talking about it, I think we're talking about 6 of them, and it's like, okay, well, the guys are going to do the concrete work and stuff, but when you got 40 of them, the amount of time it takes to do all that work, because they're everywhere. You go into any park or on the trails, and it's fantastic. You know, when you're watching little kids play in the playground, and you got park benches everywhere. But that was only my only concern was we just got to be careful that we don't overextend, you know, the city guys when they're doing stuff. And it sounded like they're going to try to fundraise a lot of the cost of the electrical work and stuff like that. But it is very unique in that, you know, you see these AED boxes all over the place, but this system was developed to climate control a space for them so that they last longer, and then when you need them, they're actually usable.
They're monitored. They said on average 35% of the AEDs that are out there either have a bad battery or have bad pads. So it's
crazy.
Monitored by the company for the annual fee to make sure, and if there's a problem, they'll come out and take care of the battery replacement or the pad replacement. So to having something there that does work if somebody needs it. And it will alarm a facility at the dispatch if the box is opened, I believe. So, yeah, just talking with Josh at Stevens County Ambulance Service, he was gonna back and forth and try to get more details on it too. I just checked with what he thought of it, and thought it was an awesome deal, and he was gonna just try to work back and forth with them also, not to step on each other's toes, but if we can all work together on it, so.
Yeah, it's a good idea. All right, any other questions off our city manager's newsletter? Hearing none, we will move on to the mayor and city council board updates. I guess I have just one announcement, I guess, regarding our annual chamber banquet. It is tomorrow night at Old Number One, starting at 5 p.m. So if anybody would like to attend, it's a fun night. There is a meal that they're offering, and then we have, we can buy raffle tickets and things like that. And of course, it's a fundraising event for the chamber, so just a fun night. If you got nothing else to do, brave the cold and come on out. Any other updates from members of the council on their boards, or? Hearing none. Under other business, I guess we can move on to that then. I do have a request. Father Todd at the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Church talked to me after Mass last weekend, and he was wondering about putting guardrails on the front of the church where the sidewalk comes down to and meets the street. Some of the parishioners have requested to put guardrails there because when they walk in, there's guardrails when you get to the steps, but getting from the street to the steps, there's some people have asked if we could put guardrails there, but
Handrail, you're talking handrail?
yeah, just handrail, just a railing, some type of railing system. And the only concern I thought is that it is kind of from the sidewalk basically onto the boulevard, I guess. But if we had snow equipment that would clip it, I don't know if that'd be an issue or not, or do they need a permit to do something like that, Blaine, or could they just do it, or?
No, I think it's their sidewalk, but I don't know if I'm trying to remember the old elementary school, didn't they have a rail going down the sidewalk?
But
But that was on the
sidewalk-
inside of the
Yeah, this is
sidewalk.
On the
the
inside.
outside.
This is gonna be
This
coming
is-
down to basically the curb.
Down
to-
For the
down to the
people,
curb.
there's
Yeah.
2 or 3 steps from the curb up to
Yep.
the sidewalk before you get to the big main steps. I guess I would suggest talking with Public Works Director and just seeing if there'd be any issue with it there,
Well, there is an accessible area to get into the church as well.
with an elevator
On the
over on the
side.
On
side.
the other side of the church.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Yeah.
so there is that.
Yep. Some people like to come in the front of the church.
No, they like to come in the front door. But-
Change your ways. Change is good.
So we should maybe talk to Russ, or?
I would talk to Russ to find out, I'd be interesting to see what it looked
Linus
like.
maybe
and-
run
Does
it
that,
by
'cause
Russ?
does that mean then other residents can put things on the sidewalks?
That was my concern.
Yeah,
Is there handicap parking over on the side, I believe?
there is an,
So, I mean, that's.
in between
it's
the
set
school.
up with the elevator and the handicap parking over on
Yep.
the east side entrance.
Yeah, I don't know, it was just a request that he made, and I just thought, well, I'll run it by everybody, see what they think, but I didn't know if there was a special permit we needed or anything, because it is.
Mhm.
All right,
I guarantee you it's not identified in the codes.
okay,
I'm just trying to think if I've ever seen a rail coming from the curb, coming in on a sidewalk. Somewhere there's one. Because I've seen it before. But I don't know where.
you wanna talk to Russ, or should I, or?
No, I can talk to Russ, but in the end, yeah, I don't know.
That street is maintained with a grader, so on the heavy bad winters, if you have deep snow, if it gets hit,
Right,
if it's put in there, the city's not gonna be
Put it
liable.
in
I
it,
would
yeah.
hope that if
Yeah.
and I
it's
think,
hit,
I
I mean,
think,
that's that right away, or
yeah, I think Father Todd was understanding to that end. You
Yeah,
know,
because,
if it gets destroyed, I guess, yeah, we'll have to put in a new one, but
we've had issues with mailboxes.
as long as they know that it's not on us if it gets clipped.
I feel like there's better solutions for it.
Yeah, that just seems like there'd be a better,
Not discounting what they're trying to do. I feel like there's better solutions though.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, I'll have a conversation with Father Todd and see
Corner,
what.
not a step.
All right, will there be any other business to come before the council? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.
Okay, Blaine,
No dice, dude.
I've been doing the wrong thing.